Dominates, but Tua Tagovailoa's health on the top of everyone's mind. We'll have a report from Miami. We have Week 3 winners on the way. Might just be teams written on a... In a moment of bad news is that Tua was able to walk off the field, and the game ends right there, 31-10. Damien Woody in studio. There was a game, Buffalo won it. That's a story. Yeah. Tua's play prior to the injury is something we would have discussed, right?
Yeah.
Hadn't played well. Then he gets injured, and given Damien this man's injury history, oddly enough, so often on these standalone games with the whole country watching, and I ask you just as a player and as a human that cares about the fraternity, what was your reaction to this?
First thing I did when I saw the play was I just said, oh no.
I think everyone did.
Oh no, not again. Because it seemed like every time we've seen Tua concussed, it's been on national television.
Yep.
Whether it was the primetime game against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati, Green Bay in the primetime slide, and then tonight. And you just, again, as us players, man, we look at each other, we're brothers in a fraternity.
Yep.
And the first thing I thought about was, man, we got to have a conversation. I don't know who it is, whether it's his wife, whether, whoever it is, having a conversation with that man about your quality of life. Because this game of football, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. You got so much life to live, and for me, it's just sickening to see this man. Seem like time and time again, being in that uncomfortable position.
And knowing you well and knowing how much family is at the center of your existence as a man, and knowing the Tagovailoa family, like his brother played at Maryland, we got to know him from on the fringes of how close-knit this group is, right, and how much family means to them. It is just so frightening to witness it. And the thing about concussions in this sport is they happen, as we know. It's an unfortunate reality on a weekly basis. But in Tua's case, because it's happened so often, and because the response has been horrifying to watch, because you realize that what the body is going through in that moment, I don't think what you're saying is unreasonable. But I guess if there's a positive, we saw him taken off on a stretcher in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And when he sat up, I thought, okay, great. He's clearly not playing tonight, nor should he.
Yeah.
But thankfully, at least there's that. I just wonder, have we become not desensitized, but so sensitized to him that we're reacting in this way, in a way we wouldn't with another player? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but again, I don't play when it comes to these concussions. I've seen so many guys that, especially during my time, and I wouldn't say during my time, let me correct that. So many guys they don't want to let their teammates down. They feel like they can play through anything. We always think about ourselves as gladiators. But then there's a residual effect that you don't necessarily feel in the moment, but later on. It may be a week later. It may be a month later. It may be years later. But you feel that residual effect. And so as being that fraternity brothers, I like to call us players, is that you want the best for that man. Again, we just playing a game.
Understood.
It's a game, but I worry about the man's long-term health.
And in this game, down by 21, in a game where he had struggled to do anything off schedule, and he's learned to protect himself. But what happens in that moment? The instinct of, I've got to make this line, and he did, but at what cost, right? I think that's the thing. You can't protect a competitor from himself in a moment like that, because he's just doing what he's compensated handsomely to do, and what he's trying to help his team win.
Yeah, we were having a conversation, watching, and one of the comments I made about Tua is, he doesn't play above the X's and O's. Like if the play is drawn, he knows how to execute in those first couple seconds. But then if it's not there, he doesn't have anything. But we saw in that moment, he tried to make something happen, and look what happened.
Right.
Again, it's just unfortunate to see.
Saw you, like so many people, everyone's reactions, God, this is awful. And you just hope the man's okay. And that's our reaction sitting watching. Skylar Thompson is the backup who came in to play after Tua was injured, and was asked after the game his immediate reaction after the injury.
interactions, if any, were you able to have with Tua?
I haven't had an interaction with him, and don't really have any information or anything to expand on that. When he went down, I immediately started getting ready, and I have yet to have an encounter with him yet. So,
how scary was that to see?
Man, I'll tell you what, it makes me sick. And I think anyone for the human eye, it sucks. In my position, you never want to have your opportunity come with something like that, and have a lot of love for Tua, built a great relationship with him, and you care about the person more than the player, and everybody in the organization would say the same thing, and so just really, praying for Tua, and hopefully everything will come out all right. So it was tough to see, though.
Coach McDaniel is a really, really interesting guy, a really thoughtful guy. I think you saw like a kiss on the head, almost like paternal in that moment for Tua leaving the field. And I mean, look, it's one thing they're getting smoked on the field, and there's that reality, right? And that's part of tonight. But I think just looking, I can't fathom. You're the coach, and your charge is to prepare your men to play. But to your point, right? I mean, this guy plays for him, and just the reaction and seeing, I can't imagine what you're trying to process in real time, and then how you try to play the rest. And the rest of the game the game was over at that point, and it was essentially played that way. I just wonder where does Miami go from here as it relates to its quarterback?
That's a great question that only Tua and I think Coach Mike McDaniel can really answer. And I'm sure it's, right now, it's hard to really answer that question because there's so much information that needs to be gathered in this particular moment. But I just go back to, I remember the conversation we had about when Tua had the conversation about where his mindset was, like when Brian Flores, and how he felt like he was down in the dumps, and then when Mike McDaniel came in and how the relationship that he formed with Tua
fostered belief.
Correct, and just what I like to call pour life into Tua Tagovailoa, and to see that guy injured like that, it has to be devastating for you as a coach because all the time that you spend together, play calling and your quarterback, and so now spinning forward, you're the Miami Dolphins. Who knows? Who knows how long Tua Tagovailoa is going to be out?
Right.
And if you're in the locker room, boy, you like, it's week 2, and where do we go from here?
Well, and here's the thing about the world we now occupy. Player safety's at the fore, as it should be.
Right.
However, there are protocols. And if he goes through the protocols and is okay and is good to play whenever that might be, next week, the week after that, everyone's holding their breath watching this man play. And the minute that it happens again, if it were to happen again, then everyone is up in arms that he shouldn't be allowed to, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the reality of this.
It's almost like a lose-lose situation.
That's well put.
It's a lose-lose situation because, again, just like you said, even when you follow the protocol and Tua comes back and then, another unfortunate incident like this happens again, we're going to be right back here.
Correct.
We're going to be right back here talking about whether the Miami Dolphins or the NFL should allow Tua back on the field.
It's a violent game. You're never going to legislate out. I mean, this man has learned how to protect himself as best as possible. That's been something that they've talked about quite a bit, not to put himself in harm's way. But again, you're down 21. It's 4th and 4.
That's your instinct.
And of course, what are you going to do? Like, he's not going to be able to neuter himself in terms of playing in a way that would completely eliminate the possibility of being injured. We're waiting to hear from Mike McDaniel and that piece of it. There is a football game, and I think we've certainly had occasions where there are injuries, and you treat those with the respect that they deserve, as I believe we're doing here. There's the game which Buffalo went down and won, and prior to Tua's injury, I think the story of this night was largely Cook's play and their defense, and a night where Josh Allen didn't have to put the cape on and be the guy that he kind of had to be against Arizona week 1. And I would think this is an awfully satisfying result for Buffalo to add another page to this dominance against this rival and quiet the chatter about people that have so much to say about their quarterback and whatever it is they're not. What impressed you about what they did did most?
Defense. Think about all the change on the defensive side of the football. Like the way we used to play the Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning. We used to have people get deeper than the deepest, make them go the long, hard route. And because these teams that are so explosive, they're not patient. Okay, can they put together 10, 12 play drives? And clearly that was the game plan of the Buffalo Bills defense, and it worked to perfection.
And Cook's performance, I think that you want, and it was interesting a week ago against Arizona. You could see Buffalo attempting to make that a big part of what they were trying to do, but then they fell behind by 14, and it almost feels like in those instances, it's like, Josh, just make something happen.
That's the luxury. That's the luxury of having Josh.
Mostly he does.
Yes.
But in this instance, they really didn't have to ask a whole lot to be done because Cook did much of the heavy lifting, as did their defense. So, I mean, to get a win like this early, last year it came late to clinch the division. Buffalo gets a much more comfortable win, I think, tonight than certainly they did in the first one, where in this game they never trailed.
Absolutely. And we actually saw kind of like the transformation of the Buffalo Bills in the second half of last season, where you saw them leaning, more, with James Cook, the running back. They became more balanced. And I felt like coming into the season that this was going to be a more efficient offense.
It was 2 rushing touchdowns and 1 receiving touchdown there. And just taking a look over your shoulder at their schedule, they come home to play Jacksonville, who was nearly a playoff team last year before the wheels fell off. Then it's at Baltimore, AFC Championship game a year ago. Houston, who made the playoffs, and the Jets on a Monday night. So 3 straight on the road for them. So this is, look, the Bills had a chance to go to 2-0, they did. And the Dolphins now drop this home game. 3 of their next 4 are on the road with a very early bye. But on a night such as this, I don't know that the questions about what happens next can possibly be answered given the uncertainty that we would have given their quarterback. I don't know what you do from the Miami perspective in the next sort of 12 hours, like how you process tonight.
Well, the one thing about players, we were very good at compartmentalizing things and understanding that your next opponent, the Seattle Seahawks, they don't care.
Right.
Like, they're still coming. And so you got to find a way to put this behind you and prepare for that next tough game. But, again, where does this leave the Miami Dolphins? Like, we don't know what the situation health-wise with Tua, how long he's going to be out. It's just week 2. I mean, it's in that locker room, guys are kind of, they're asking questions right now.
I think that's great perspective, just of these sort of dueling realities. On the one hand, there's the ability to compartmentalize and understand that this is part of it, and our opponent doesn't care. But there's the other side, which this is our brother,
That's
and
right.
This is our guy,
Yep.
and we got to make sure that he's all right. And we're going to wait to hear from Mike McDaniel. More conversation coming here, by the way, on SportsCenter.